What's happening, Elevation Nation? We're back with another week, another elevator, a special elevator. Man, we're all over the place right now. Sam is in DC. I am in Puerto Rico, and our new elevator, Andy Bernstein, is coming to us from California. Andy, it is a pleasure and an honor to have you join Elevation Nation. I'll let you talk about, your elevator pitch in a bit, but first off, what's going on, man?
Well, let's see. I just finished up my 43rd NBA season. And first of all, thank you guys for having me. I should have said that first. And all three of my LA teams got bounced out in the first round, Lakers, Clippers, and Kings. So I'm busy with my Legends of Sport platform and another business that I've launched with a couple of partners. So, it never stops, and I never wanted to stop. But I get a little bit of a breather right now because I'm not covering games.
I was about to say, good or a bad thing, with this many seasons under your belt, do you want extra vacation time, or are you such a diehard fan that this hurts you? I think you don't have to answer that, but maybe it goes both ways sometimes, I imagine.
Well, it's not really vacation. I mean,
Fair enough.
I will get a somewhat of a vacation this summer. For a couple of weeks, it's a little bit of a working vacation on the family side, but
Nice.
but I tend to be a workaholic, so if the gears aren't turning, there's something going wrong in my world.
Sure. It helps when you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that. Obviously, Andy Parker and I were introduced to you from some friends, the Nucleus Network guys, and we love those fellas. And
Yes.
we know all about you. And your reputation certainly precedes yourself. But for folks that are just tuning in and didn't have a chance to really research you, I'm going to say it. I'm going to toot your own horn for you. Andy, you are a legend in the game, in the sports world, in photography, in business now. Can you give us, this is Elevation Nation, can you give us a little elevator pitch for the folks that don't know you? Who are you?
Well, if I was going to meet you for the first time, I would respectfully introduce myself and shake your hand. Um, and just tell you a little bit about myself. I mean, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Moved to California when I was 19 to pursue my passion in sports photography. I was able to build a very successful sports photography business, and I emphasize the word business because it is a business. Um, and I was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. I was in LA when Showtime was taking off. I became the Dodgers team photographer at the same time. Um, Freelancing as a sports photographer was kind of in its heyday at that time with magazines and trading cards and stuff. Nothing close to what it is now. But I was able to succeed in a very, very busy, saturated market. Very, very talented photographers, many of them much more talented than me. But I was able to use a lot of my Brooklyn moxie and some business sense that I picked up along the way from photographers and teachers that I worked for. We're still cranking over here. This is year 45 that I'm in business, 43 with the NBA. And there's a secret to my success of longevity, which is loyalty, trust, delivering, and always giving the client what they want at the highest level.
Loyalty, trust, and delivery. Man, 45 years. And Andy, I've been reading, obviously, doing my research. You got inducted to the California Sports Hall of Fame recently, right?
That's coming up in June, the end of June.
Okay.
They're sticking me in there in the in the California Sports Hall of Fame. I'm fortunate to be only the second photographer honored by the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, which is
Wow.
pretty prestigious, I would say. I got the Gowdy Award in 2018, which up until that point, except for Rich Clarkson, who completely deserved it, and it was way too late for Rich as a photographer. They had only honored broadcasters and writers at that point. So it's now expanded, thank God, to all of us who have created the imagery that has made this game what we love and been able to archive that for history. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations. I
Thank
think
you.
it's certainly amazing. It's amazing to hear. And Sam and we've interviewed hundreds of people on Elevation Nation. It's mostly, I mean, young people who are getting after it, trying to make their dreams come true, right?
Mhm.
Most
Mhm.
of us have graduated college and now we're living those years of our 20s and trying to navigate it all. And so, Sam and first question, I'm looking at, my computer screen here. It's like, let's go back to Andy back in his 20s when
Mhm.
he was young, out of college, and you started to pave your own path. You said you were in the right place in the right time. We would love to hear a little bit more about what your 20s looked like and how you were able to elevate yourself during that new part in your life.
Mm. Well, it happened before my 20s, I must say. When I went to college at 17, I just had turned 17. I was able to go a little early because I had skipped a grade, um, being part of the baby boomer generation.
You skipped a grade.
Well, the school just,
Academic? Like
yeah,
just so smart?
no, there were so many kids from like, my parents' generation, from World War II, whatever they were called, that we oversaturated the schools. So if you were like an average student, they offered the parents the opportunity for your kid to either skip third grade or eighth grade. And third grade, I was about 3.5 feet tall. I hadn't grown anything yet. So by eighth grade, I was ready to skip. So I ended up going to college at 17, and I started hustling from the minute I got there. I was immediately sort of magnetically attracted to our college newspaper called the Daily Collegian. It's a very prestigious college newspaper, and it came out 5 days a week. And within 2 weeks, I was already working as a staff photographer there, and they quickly promoted me to assistant photo editor, which as a freshman was unheard of, quite frankly, but nobody else wanted the job. And I was kind of living in the newsroom. It's a real newsroom atmosphere there, a lot of camaraderie. But here I am, this 17-year-old freshman, giving out assignments to juniors and seniors, which was kind of funny. But I realized later on that was like the bedrock of my sort of organizational management skills. And I worked for a guy named Chris Bourne, who was a senior. He was the photo editor. I don't think Chris took pictures, honestly. I think he just sat behind the desk and yelled at people and gave out assignments. But he and I got along great. I was a great right hand to him. And then I got to pick and choose the assignments I wanted, which was great. So when I made a decision halfway through my time at UMass to take a leap of faith and move to California, because I needed to get training, like classroom training. I was learning on the fly, quite frankly, and there were no classes in organized photography at UMass, which was something I probably should have known before I got there. But I decided to honestly take a leap of faith and move to LA, and went to a school called Art Center College of Design, which from the moment I got there, I was told I was in the wrong place. Why are you here? We don't teach this stuff. Nobody makes a living in sports photography. These are all direct quotes from people, by the way, from teachers, the head of the department, the president of the school actually told me that. So, I'm a Brooklyn guy, and you tell me that I can't do something, it only fuels me even more. But all this to say that by the time I turned 19 or 20, I was already working. I was hustling gigs wherever I could. I was getting credentials wherever I could to cover games and any sport I could possibly get to build my portfolio. And most importantly, I was working as an assistant for Sports Illustrated. And that came about because one of my teachers truly believed in my talent and my path, and he wouldn't let me give up, quite frankly. And he referred me to a couple of SI guys that he knew, and I was off to the races. That's why I really learned, honestly, on the job, on the street, doing every imaginable kind of assisting that you could imagine, any sports event. But most specifically, I learned how to light arenas for hockey and basketball, which SI was a very unique thing that they did back in the day. And there are only a few of us in the country who really knew how to do that. So that, I saw that as an opportunity. I got my foot in the door by being an assistant with people at the Forum, for example, who ran the Lakers and Kings and all the other sports that happened inside the Forum. And once that door opened a little bit, I was able to, push it forward a little bit more, and then I started to kind of hustle jobs from them and photography. And then the NBA came calling in '83 with the NBA All-Star game at the Forum, and the rest is really history.
Pretty good time.
And then my 20s, guys, was spent relentlessly pursuing a career as to be one of the top sports photographers in the world. Quite frankly, I mean, there's no way to really sugarcoat it. I was on a mission I had benchmarks of success that I measured my progress by. And by the time I got my first cover of Sports Illustrated in 1985, I was 27 years old. And that's when I knew, they can't take an SI cover away from you. So I knew that, I had arrived. I was like at the door, and now I had to figure out how to stay there and to maintain it and build it.
It's an incredible journey. I want to get into your 20s a little bit more, but Andy, you mentioned, you moved across the country and took a risk on yourself. And just to fill you in on some of the conversations, to Parker's earlier point, we've spoken with hundreds of young adults, both who've come on the podcast and others who are in high school or college that Parker and I speak to around the country too. Mm-hmm. And many of them often mention a similar theme to us, which is, my parents are pushing me in one direction, or society expects X degree or profession from me, and I don't feel like I can do what I truly want. Mm-hmm. And so I want to ask you, Parker and I, two Jewish guys, our options were lawyer, doctor, or businessman. And I imagine your parents had some fear or hesitation with you saying, I'm going to go pursue my passion for photography, and not in backyard of Brooklyn in New York, mom and dad. I'm going across the country. How did you handle that situation?
Well, what a great question, and no one has ever asked me that. At that time, this was 1975 when I went to college originally, and I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do at 17, right? I knew I liked photography. I'd always liked photography since I was 14. I got my first camera, but I honestly did not know my career path, and I don't think anybody should know that at 17, quite honestly. I mean, you can have an idea where you want to go, but I went to a big liberal arts college to be exposed to a lot of things, and I thought that something would click along the way. It happened to be photography, but at that time in my family's life, my family was in complete chaos. My parents were getting a divorce. My younger brother was being shuttled around from one parent to the other. And it was just kind of, I was honestly, fellas, I was like lost in the shuffle. I really was. And it was kind of like out of sight, out of mind, oh, he's doing photography. Oh, that's good. That keeps him off the street. So,
it's interesting that and I'm sorry to cut you off, but you have a common theme there with so many other people we've spoken to who have taken a leap of faith, which they have two options. They either say, my parents, were really against it and I was going to prove it to them no matter what, or a chaotic event happened that triggered me to know I needed to make a change. So many of the young people we interview are, go through some traumatic event or hardship that really rattles them to their core and says, I am not going down this path anymore and I am making a change. And it sounds like, I mean, you certainly at 27 being able to get on the cover of SI, prove to your parents that you were going to make it, but also by you being lost in the shuffle, it almost allowed you to take a risk without having the naysayers, perhaps?
It's really true. Honestly, I always thought my parents thought it was a hobby. Okay, he's going to go to California and go to this art school, and one day he'll wake up or something. Or they honestly didn't really care. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak badly of them. They're not here to defend themselves. But I think, when I started to succeed, early in my 20s, they kind of figured out that this was my path. They could see I was very passionate about it, and as good parents do, I think they were just happy that I was following a passion, something that I love to do, and I was building a life too. I got married for the first time in '86. We bought our first house. I was starting to be, somewhat successful, I guess you would say, um, and then my dad loved it because I would take him to like all the big events. I took him with me to the Dream Team in '92. I mean, how did it get better than that?
He's like, Andy, good job. Take me to the tickets for free. We're good. We're chilling.
Exactly. I mean,
Wow.
he went to
Wow.
every All-Star game. He went to NBA Finals. I started working, for the Kings. He'd go to hockey games, and he loved it. And this is how my dad and I bonded from when I was a little kid, was over sports. So for me to kind of pay it back, or sort of go full circle with him, was very, comforting, rewarding to me. And that was kind of what our relationship was built on, but that was fine. That was good.
It's so funny that you say that, you started in photography and your parents might have looked at it as like a passion, and they're like, oh, when's it going to happen? And Sam and I, going through this experience with podcasting and what we're building with Elevation Nation over the last 5 years on top of our full-time jobs, my parents, same sentiment for the last 4 years. It's a passion. Oh, Parker, how's the passion project? Oh, podcasting, blah, blah.
Yeah.
However, Andy, just recently, Sam and I, to the point, the last 6 months, we're starting to hit our stride a little bit more, not just with the podcast. We're elevating others in new ways beyond the podcast. And my mom gives me a call. She's like, Parker, you just, gave a workshop in front of 200 people. Like, I see what you guys are kind of doing now. And I said, it's still a passion, right? It is still a passion because you're not able to do it, right, without the passion. So I think it's very, very funny. I feel very similar to you in that sense, Andy. I want to ask you, so you're 27 years old, you get on the front page of SI, and you can look at the magazine and say, damn, wow, my name is right there in front of the world to see when they go to the store to pick up that new cover of SI. And I think as a young person, you strive for those moments of achievement and accomplishment, and then you get them. And then you have a moment to enjoy that. And I do think when we talk about elevating doesn't stop. You have to continue to go, and you're driven to keep going. And so I'm really curious, as you look back past when you were 27, first time getting on the front page of SI, how did you take that and use that as fuel to keep you going and take yourself to even the next level?
Oh, it was absolute like rocket fuel, because it affirmed everything that I believed in myself, because there it was, in full living color, an 8.5 by 11 magazine. I mean, I remember to this day going down to the newsstand in Hollywood. It was the place I knew got the magazine for the first time in LA. Delivered right off the plane, went right to World News on Cahuenga Boulevard. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but I was there at 6 a.m. Literally, it's like a movie when the guy like throws the magazines in with the string, off the truck, and and there it is. And I said, well, how much is it going to cost me to buy all that whole bundle? And the guy says, all of them? I said, yeah, all of them. I bought like 30 copies or something, but yes, I gave myself a moment, and then I said, okay, got to get the next one. And then what's coming up next, and how am I going to keep building and building and building? And, this comes full circle to me when I met Kobe, and from the moment I met him, but especially the later years where I really saw how driven this guy was, and in retrospect to his rookie season. But when we started to do our book together, and when I really started to understand what the Mamba Mentality meant to him, and how he and I shared that, we had this obsession, each of us, with our crafts. He happened to be a basketball player. I happened to be a photographer. But we, like you guys, I mean, we all have a passion that we're driven by, that we're obsessed by, really. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing the podcast for 5 years. I don't know about you guys. I've been doing the podcast now. We're going into year 7. I don't think we've seen a dime from the podcast, but I love doing it. I absolutely love doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. People are going to keep coming on. I'm going to keep having great conversations. And, if the money's meant to be, it'll be meant to be. But I feel like I'm providing something back to the world, especially to people who love sports. And where else do I get an opportunity to sit down with like Jerry West for 45 minutes, or Peter Guber, or, Sue Bird,
Parker Yabon and Sam Panich. I mean, This is what podcasting gets to do. We connect with each other. It's beautiful.
I know I'm preaching to the choir, because in this day and age, everything is like immediate, and you're swiping or you're texting, and then you're on to the next thing. So it's a very old school way of having a conversation with new technology.
How nice is it that 3 guys, we've never met in person, we certainly will one day, we get to put our phones away and talk about life and stories and struggles and learn from a mentor, and maybe we'll even teach you something about our lessons that we've learned too, Andy. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than that. And you mentioned quickly, I want to hint at it, you dropped what we were going to talk about next, which was Kobe Bryant and your beautiful relationship with Kobe. And I certainly don't want to claim that Parker and I have the Mamba mentality, because that is something so special and unique. But what I will say is, I think if Kobe was here, he would agree that all of us have what we call an elevator mentality, which is, I can't say I'm in, the podcast studio at 4 a.m. like Kobe was in the gym, getting up reps, talking to myself. But what I will say is, I think all of us have an obsession of wanting to continue to be better versions of ourselves. And Andy, you mentioned it at the beginning, which was, guys, all the LA teams lost, but I'm not done. I got businesses I'm running. I got things I'm doing. I have more that I want to do. And you're challenging yourself in new and unique ways. And I think what unites all of Elevation Nation and elevators, and why I think Kobe would certainly be one, is it's not just your craft that you're interested in growing in. It's all the beautiful things in life that you're curious about. And so Parker and I, we love podcasting, but we also love public speaking. We love business strategy. We love connecting and networking. There are so many hats that we want to wear and continue to up our game and elevate a bit more. And I think Kobe certainly did it with his business ventures. And Andy, you're doing it with yours. So I'll ask you, how do you, when you did reach that pinnacle and that you had that rocket fuel with Sports Illustrated, how did you then continue to elevate in other areas of your life outside of photography, but maybe some other endeavors that you were interested in?
Well, I want to answer that in a second, but I want to go back to what you just said, Sam, because the key ingredient to everything you just described with you guys and me and Kobe and everyone else who attained or is pushing themselves, following their dream and their passion, is really the first ingredient has to be preparation, right? I mean, you guys didn't come on this, you have me on and like we're winging it here. I mean, you like researched and you talked to, the Nucleus guys and saw, hey, is Andy the right fit for us? And then, same thing with me. I don't go to a game and just like plop down and start shooting when the ball goes up. I'm there 5 hours before a game. Kobe and I used to have a crazy mind game in his entire career. Who would get to the arena first, Andy or Kobe? And I got to tell you, fellas, I beat him to the arena every single time because I had to be there when he got there to document his coming in, right? And that burned his ass. He hated that. But that connected us like you wouldn't believe when we started to do the book together. So going back to your main question, right? Which is, what was it? I forgot now. What did you ask me?
I tied it all back to all of us having that theme of being an elevator and how we find these other areas to kind of raise the bar.
Right. So, okay, let's take Kobe for example. All right, the kid comes out of high school. He's basically a dunking machine. If I went to a game, I didn't get 4 or 5 great dunks from him in his first 5 or 6 seasons. It was like a bad night, right? Well, he had to work on his outside shot. He had to work on his defense. Oh, he had to build his body up because he weighed like 160 pounds coming out of high school. He was getting beat up underneath every single night by guys like Karl Malone and all those dudes who would just annihilate him, right? and he was fearless, but he knew that, just like Jordan knew when he was getting beat up by Detroit, that at some point he had to get his body to the next level, right? So with me, I knew that to have longevity, to have a long career, and to keep clients, and that's the most, it's hard enough to get clients, it's harder to keep them. Phil Jackson always said, it's hard to get that first championship. It's really hard to get that second one, because, you get this idea, this sort of invincibility, or this kind of like feeling like, you're doing everything right and you don't have to work at it. It's constant work, as you know, trying to build what you're building. So even now, my photography career, thank God, is great and it's done well, and I'm thrilled. But I'm not sitting on those laurels. I just turned 66 last week. I mean, I could be out playing golf or fishing or something, but that's not in my nature. My dad worked until literally the week he died. He was working, and he knew he was about to go, and he said, "What am I going to do? Sit around and wait?" So he went to work. So I'm motivated. I'm excited about the ventures that I'm working on. They're fueling. I actually have to say they're refueling my creative energy, because my creative energy is starting to wane on the photography side, and I think that's natural after 4+ decades, right, with anything. And I'm getting a lot of excitement out of what we got going on and what's coming up. Right now, literally right this minute, before I came on with you guys, I was on a Zoom call about this book project I'm working on with Vanessa Bryant, with Kobe's widow, on all the murals all over the world. And she chose me, Legends of Sport, my platform, to produce this book. Of all the people in the world that could have done it, it's us. So this is top shelf importance to me right now. And not having to do games really kind of frees me up, frees up the bandwidth, which is a godsend, actually.
Wow, what an incredible project. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, you're gonna be traveling across the world for this, I assume.
Well, no, because it would take too long. First of all, it'd be really expensive.
Yeah.
So we're working with Getty Images on assignments internationally.
Wow.
There's about 750 murals all over the world that we're aware of.
Oh my
And all those murals,
gosh.
by the way, I'm going to plug my friend Mike Asner, my dear friend Mike, who started the KobeMural.com website. And Kobe Mural, it's called @KobeMural on Instagram. Any fan of Kobe, or just, of art or murals or whatever, can go to the site and see every mural. It's like a Google Earth. Like, there's little pins on all the murals all over the world. And you click on the pin, the mural comes up, shows you where it is. Obviously, there's a picture of it, has a little blurb about the artist and all that kind of stuff. So when Vanessa saw that these murals were going up through Mike's site, she was so taken back. And this was, Kobe died in January, Kobe and Gigi. This was like March or April, and we like in COVID by this point, right? She reached out to me and she said, "Is somebody documenting these murals?" I said, "Well, funny you say that, because I was going to come to you with this idea," and she loved the idea of a book. Keep in mind that her two youngest girls didn't know their dad and their sister. One was what was she, like 2.5, and the other one was basically, I don't think she was even walking yet. So for her to have all these murals memorialized in a book was really, really important to her, and it still is. So it's a passion project, but it's something that I take very seriously, obviously. And we have a great team of people here in New York working on it. So stay tuned.
We'll be tuning in. I mean, that sounds incredible. When you think about, I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the murals, if not all of them. On the topic of talking about Kobe, is there a specific moment, maybe an interaction with you and Kobe, that you always come back to, or even a sports moment that you're just like, that epitomizes who Kobe Bryant was?
Dude, this happened almost on a daily basis with this guy. I mean, it's a famous story, but I was literally there with the Redeem team in 2008. And here's the guy going to the gym at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when the other guys, I won't name them, were coming back to the hotel from being out all night, right? Dude is going to the gym so that he can lift and do his stuff before they even came to practice. So practice would start at 10. He'd already gotten 2 hours of shooting in by that point. That was pretty unbelievable. I got a call. We were staying at the Wynn Hotel, and I got a call literally at 1:30 in the morning from his trainer. Hey, Kobe's about to do Pilates up in the suite. You want to come up and get some pictures? I'm like, what? Okay. So, I mean, this is like 5 podcasts worth of content, but there was just so many moments. And the one that really sticks out is when we really got deep into doing the book, and we were about halfway through and going through the content of the book, and he wrote every word in the book came from his mouth. So he knew exactly the structure of the book and how he wanted it to go. And we were sitting there and going over photos and how they matched up with the text and all that. And I just said to him, I said, hey, somebody never asked you before, man, like, what was it about me that you welcomed me into your inner circle? He was very careful as to who was in his inner circle. And, he trusted me from the beginning, which was wonderful. And I never gave him any reason not to. And he goes, well, he said, I only want people around me who are as crazy, as obsessed with what they do as what I do. He goes, and you are nuts. I said, I see how you work. I see how early you get to the arena. He goes, he said, you and I are cut from the same cloth. And, for him to say that, no person in business or no athlete especially has ever said that to me. So that was humbling, but it was also very revealing about him wanting to be around somebody like me who was as passionate as he was.
Well, I know Parker and I are not Kobe Bryant, but I will say, in our perspective, Andy, you have both the Mamba mentality and the elevator mentality. And Parker and I discuss all the time. One of the things that really keeps us going and fuels us, all these guests that we invite into the nation. You're now an elevator, joining Elevation Nation. In my opinion, a very elite group of incredible humans that are just trying to get the best out of themselves and their communities. It inspires me, right? Whatever your passion is, I don't have to love what you're doing, but it's fun to listen to people just pour their heart and soul and stories to us. And we certainly get to take lessons from that. So you didn't hear it from other business people, but you heard it from Kobe, and now you heard it from us, that it's fun to talk to people that have this similar mentality. There's almost this unwritten bond that you have. Like, I know Andy's grinding. Parker and Sam are grinding. We're going to do amazing things together. And so that's what's beautiful and why we love this.
Well, thank you for saying that. And, as the oldest guy in the room, and a father of 4, I have 2 kids, 2 29-year-olds of 28, and soon to be 16. Your kids pick up from you. My wife works hard too. She's a lawyer. She's relentless in her job, in a different way than me. But our kids, saw how hard we worked and continue to work. And I have a daughter that's a dancer, who's been following that passion since she was 2.5 years old. First time that she danced. And I knew from that moment, honestly, that was her path. So she's a professional dancer in Philadelphia. And I have another daughter who's in medical school. And my son is following his path of business management. And my youngest is an amazing, incredible singer who has she's only 16, but she has accomplished so much at this point. So we lead by example. And I know you guys, I don't know if you guys have kids, but a lot of people who listen to you guys and part of your demographic, you're going to have kids one day. And when you impart to your kids, will make them the people that they are, right? I saw how hard my dad worked. My work ethic came from my dad and came from Magic Johnson. Because when I started being around the Lakers, and I saw how hard that guy worked every single day. Like you cannot point to any game that Magic like mailed it in. You know, they could be up by 40 points against the team. He's still playing hard, or he's on the bench cheering his teammates. And that all comes from his father, mostly his father and mother. But his father had 3 jobs growing up. You know, Magic used to work in the winter on the garbage truck with his dad. So, you know, it doesn't matter how successful you become, what you were brought up with, what you learned, what you were around, stays with you your whole life. And it's our job as parents to pass that down.
Man, I mean, I got married 3 weeks ago. I'm not saying I'm thinking about having kids. I mean, certainly it's been a conversation a lot more recently, as you can imagine. However, I mean, just thank you for that advice, seriously, because I feel like as a young person, you know, you can hear it from certain people, but you don't always get the outsider perspective, you know, from people outside of your family. And so that's why, you know, I love doing these types of conversations and podcasts so we can meet a guy like you, Andy, and I get that knowledge and that advice. And man, I appreciate that so much.
For sure.
Andy, we got a few more questions for you before we wrap up. Crazy to think we've been going for 35 minutes already. We always ask, what is next? What is next for Andy Bernstein? I know you got a lot going on. You're going to the summer. Unfortunately, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Kings all got kicked out of the playoffs in the first round. What's next with Legends of Sport? You know, I know there's a lot going on.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. We are working on launching season 7, which will happen in the end of June or early July. We're bringing the podcast to, we're working on, I can't confirm yet that it's happening, but we're talking to the NBA about bringing the podcast to Summer League, which will be fun, to the Hall of Fame, which was moved from August, now it's in October, which is always fun to take the podcast on the road. I don't know if you guys do that, but it's, you know, it's just a different experience. And, and, you know, we already have guests lined up for the podcast, so that's one thing. But it's getting Legends of Sport as a platform to the next level, which involves funding and investment. You know how much fun that is to try to raise money, and events now are another key component. So doing events that honor legends, it could be legendary athletes or teams or moments or whatever it could be, but we were starting to get a little momentum going right into 2020, and then boom, the floor fell out, and it's taken this amount of time to sort of get back to planning events and having people want to spend money on events. You know, people have been pretty tight with money since COVID, so. But that's given, you know, I look at the other side of that, it's given us more time to plan and prepare and be ready and all that stuff. So, you know, things happen for a reason. We were all stuck in it and we all had to make the best of it. And, you know, the silver lining for me with the podcast, with COVID, was that I was stuck in the house. Luckily, I was able to get out because my office is about 1.5 miles from here. I just sneak out of my house because I had my daughter doing medical school. I had my other daughter in 7th grade, and my wife was doing her lawyer stuff all from home on Zoom. So I was going out of my mind, right? So I went to my office, and I was able to do the podcast interviews on Zoom. I'd never done Zoom before. So we started doing everything on video. So all our podcasts from season 3, I guess, on have been on video and audio, which has been a godsend because now we can cut reels, and that's what people love and all that stuff. So
you just keep elevating up a little better each time.
Yeah, so Legends of Sport, the main thing right now is getting it financially to the point where we can hire a couple of key people. You know, we have great people working freelance for us now, but I need at least two full-time people devoted to content and events and all that kind of thing. So that will come when it's ready to come. I was just invited to participate in a really great photo festival in Dubai in February. Yeah, that came out of nowhere. So It's called Exposure. And last year they had some major news and political photographers like David Kennerly was there, Pete Souza was there. Neil Leifer seems to go like every year. Neil is my original mentor and still is. And so I'm honored that they asked me to come. That'll be fun. And, a few other things in the hopper. Like I said, I have this other company. I can't really talk about it now because it's very much in its infancy. But when I come on again with you next time, there'll be a lot to talk about. I promise.
Deal. We love it. And we have some ideas for you to help you keep up the momentum. So we will chat for a minute after the pod, but I want to make sure we wrap up on time and respect your time here. We have a couple rapid fire questions, Andy, that we love to ask our guests. First answer that comes to your mind. Don't have to think about it. So I'm going to start us off. What is one moment in sports history that you were able to experience that really sticks out to you?
Kirk Gibson's home run, Game 1 of the 1988 World Series. I mean, sports moments go, fellas.
Tough to beat.
Yeah, that's man.
I literally thought at the moment, Dodger Stadium was going to break in half. People were out of their minds. I mean, it was the most explosive moment I'd ever seen, to this day, I'd ever experienced. And I've done 20, I think at last count, 23 Game 7s during playoffs, counting finals and earlier rounds. And those are always great. I've done Game 7s and Stanley Cup finals, which are nuts. But that was a moment that will, nothing will ever equal that.
Beautiful.
I feel like you've thought about this a good amount. You were like right away. That was it.
Well, no,
all the moments, that was the one. I mean,
yeah, but I didn't know you were going to ask me that.
That's true.
No one else has ever asked me that, but it's definitely front and center. 100%.
Okay. Well, I got a question around what was maybe your most unique photo shoot experience that you've ever done?
Oh, that's a great question. Unique, huh? Well, I can tell you the very first commercial shoot I ever did for a product was for Converse, and this was in Magic's. So it had to be Magic's third year, and it was my second year shooting. And editorial work is great, but commercial work pays like 10, 20 times more, right? And you're doing an ad, or you're doing, a poster or billboard or whatever the hell it is. And this happened to be a poster for Converse, my very first commercial shoot. And like almost every commercial shoot I've ever done, it's in conjunction with a TV shoots with the actual commercial. So, you go to the sound stage and Magic is shooting the commercial over here. And they say, you still guys go over there and set up your backdrop and we'll bring him over when he has time, which sometimes you wait all day and then you get 2 minutes with the guy, or when they're changing lighting, they bring them over and somebody grabs them. So it's very much the poor stepchild of what's going on during the day. So we had time to prepare, and it was an involved shoot. It was like, imagine like the Earth on a poster, and Magic is like lunging across the Earth, like doing his famous move, like, and then he's going to do a no-look pass, but it's in one still picture. And the art director had the entire thing completely mapped out exactly how he wanted it. They hired a stand-in who was the same kind of, height, weight, width, skin tone, everything as Magic was. And, we worked with that guy. And back in those days, we used to shoot Polaroids, right? Because we were shooting on film. So the only way you could see what the photo really looked like with the lighting and everything else was a Polaroid. And the camera was a 2 1/4 camera, had a special back. Take the film back off, put the Polaroid back on. Polaroid back, and you take the picture, and you have to wait 60 seconds for the, this is all prehistoric stuff to you guys and your audience. But anyway, so we're all locked in. They bring Magic over. Yeah, we said hi, we knew each other and everything. We weren't like friends at that point, like really friendly. But so he goes, okay, what do you want me to do? I said, well, this is what the shot looks like. This is what the art director mapped out. I need you to do the move. He gets up there and he starts to do the move, and I put the Polaroid back on the camera, and he goes, "Whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm taking the Polaroid. I got to see what it looks like with you in it." He goes, "No, no, no. When I come on the set, we don't do Polaroids. You be ready." I never forget. He says, "You be ready." So fast forward, okay? It was a moment of truth, right? So we produced a great, really great poster. I have it actually hanging in my office. And fast forward to about 2 months ago, Magic's office called. And he said, Magic's assembling all of his different companies, the CEOs, and they're all coming in for an executive retreat. Would you come down to this beautiful resort in Palos Verdes, and would you do us a favor and take a group photo, right? And I appreciated the fact that he wanted me to do it. That was wonderful. I go down there and have the tripod set up. Of course, it's digital, right? And I said, "Okay, guys, 1, 2. Oh, wait, second, Magic, can I do a Polaroid now?" And he absolutely lost it because he
That's
remembered
awesome.
the moment. And it was something that lived forever. That was 40 years ago that happened.
Wow. That's incredible.
I know it's a long-winded answer.
No, that was great.
That's a great story.
It's a great
I love
story.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nice when things come full circle and you can get them with a little jab back.
Right.
That's special. I love it. Andy, our last rapid fire here. Parker and I love to read. We love to educate Elevation Nation. I know Mamba Mentality is certainly book number 1 recommendation for everyone. But do you have another book that you want to share with our audience that you think has been really impactful on your life that they should read?
Well, there's 2. I'm going to give you 2. Right? And I didn't know you were going to ask this question, but it's a great book by Peter Guber, which you guys and your audience, right? They're all like in your age group, and kind of getting your feet like really solidly in business. Called "Tell It to Win." "Tell It to Win" by Peter Guber. It's Peter's story, literally from rags to riches. Peter Guber was so poor as a kid in Boston. Okay, this is the guy who owns the Warriors, the Dodgers, built Chase Center, built LAFC Stadium, owns LAFC, was the head of Sony Studios with 50 Academy Award nominations. I can go on and on and on. It was on the podcast, by the way. I'm just, plugging that. But Peter was so poor as a kid, he couldn't even afford a 50-cent ticket to sit in the bleachers at Fenway Park. He and his friends had to stand out on Yawkey Way and hope that a ball got hit over the Green Monster, and would listen to the game through the walls of Fenway, right? So think about that. So Tell It to Win. There's also another book for maybe guys more my age called The Second Mountain by David Brooks, which is really about what I'm doing. It's sort of pivoting. The first mountain was building my photography career and business and all that. And then the second mountain is taking everything that I got from that first mountain and bringing it over to that second one. And very inspiring, both of those books.
Well, Elevation Nation knows that my library has become very big because I buy every book that our elevators recommend. And so, Andy, thanks for adding 2 more to the bookshelf. That's great. Sam crossed out my last question, but I have to ask it before we get to the final one because I've always, actually this is from my brother. He was like, you got to ask him this. Okay. Curb Your Enthusiasm 2000, Larry David trips Shaq on the court. Were you there? Did it actually happen? What's the deal with that?
Well, they filmed the actual live stuff of the game. They filmed it. They had the whole Curb crew was there, and they were at the game, and they were filming all of that game action stuff was going on. The actual trip they filmed after the game, right? So if you really look at that episode, you can see that it was zoomed in, like they only got that small portion of the crowd in. But the way they did it was just amazing. And every time I see, and Larry is hilarious, by the way. He comes and he sits courtside in the same seats, right? They're the Endeavor seats right next to the Laker bench. And he sits with his legs out, basically on the sideline. And, I patrol up and down in pregame and all that. And I think it was earlier this season I saw him there, and he's always very friendly. And I said, "Didn't learn your lesson, did you?" And he laughed.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
That was such
Oh,
a great
man.
episode, too.
It's incredible. So good. So
That's
good.
special. All right, I'm glad you asked it, Parker. I'm sorry. I knew we were running short on time. So, Andy, I want to end with this. You are now officially in Elevation Nation. We are so honored to have you and to have had this conversation. Every single elevator has what we call your mental motto, which is a phrase that embodies who you are and how you live your life. So, Andy Bernstein, what is your mental motto?
Well, my mental motto has got to be don't listen to the noise. Okay? Because we all have noise going on. In my case, it was coming out here to California, like I said earlier, and everybody telling me I was in the wrong place and shouldn't be doing this and I'll never make a living and blah, 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 all that stuff. That's all coming in this way, and you just need to. I've learned that tuning it out doesn't really work. You have to sort of honor the fact. This is a very Phil Jackson Zen thing. You have to honor that it's happening, okay? And then say, okay, time for you to go. You're not serving me. It's not doing me any good listening to all this crap. And, Kobe was the perfect role model for that because, how many last second shots did he make, right? But how many did he miss? Robert Ory talks about that too, about his penchant for hitting game-winning shots. But he missed a few too, which on the podcast he and I talked about. And I actually missed the picture of his most famous three-pointer game winner because of a technical thing that really wasn't my fault, but it really was my fault because I'm there to record the moment. And when that doesn't happen, for whatever reason, right? So the noise is always going to happen. It's a good angel, bad angel thing, whatever you want to call it. But just don't listen to the noise. Honor it, but then get rid of it.
Incredible mental motto. Sam and I have never heard the same mental motto, Andy. Think about that too, which is really fun and very, honestly, inspiring just in general. Everyone has something that keeps them going, way they live their life. But Andy, to close this out, I just got to say thank you on behalf of Sam, myself, Elevation Nation, seriously, for joining us for such a special conversation. I know Sam and I both learned a ton, but even more so as a young person, especially getting married, hearing some of your stories and how you've just relied on discipline. And that's just the main takeaway I've had. Discipline in your life, and you knew it was going to come back to you and come back to you and come back to you. And it's so cool and inspiring to hear where you are and what you've gone through as a young person, because, Sam and I are just getting started on this thing. And while the days are hard, the milestones will come. And that's why we're doing this thing. And at the end of the day, I just got to say thank you. Welcome to the nation. We're pumped to have you.
Thank you, fellas. And don't forget that, as Kobe said, and others have said, Michael Jordan probably most famously said, that failure is not just an option. Failure is a necessity for success. You don't learn anything by being successful and never failing, right? Those are one-shot wonders who come and go and, never hear from them again. It's those of us who have learned from our failures, have learned to pick ourselves up, keep moving forward, and good things will happen because, effort means everything. And I can see how hard you guys work. And I wish you the best of success, especially in marriage. And don't forget that I'm going to preach again, but that there's a balance, right? And that, we have to remember that. I had a hard time doing that. And that's a whole other conversation as a young father and being so driven by this career. But, my kids turned out okay. So I love it. Speak.
That's a conversation for us in person over a beer, I think. Andy, thank you. Elevation Nation, until next week. Peace.